I want to bring in former Attorney General under President George W. Bush, John Ashcroft. Mr. Attorney General, it's always a pleasure. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, Maria. Good morning.
Your reaction to the hearing yesterday?
Well, the hearing regarding Flynn's remarks and the conflict between what he said in one setting and what the Vice President was saying he was said later on, that's really not in much dispute. I think everyone has agreed about that. The problem that he was unmasked or that this was leaked to the public and the like, which was a criminal act, really wasn't addressed. So you have this hysteria about maybe Russians were involved in some way trying to upset our election or to influence our election, masking the problem that a crime was committed when people improperly leaked the identity of someone whose information was gained as a result of a surveillance. There's a little tension between what Director Clapper said and what Sally Yates said. Director Clapper said there was no evidence, and Sally Yates says, well, I can't say whether there was evidence because that's classified. Now, this seems to be that Ms. Yates is saying that the absence of evidence or the absence of information is classified information. That was not the interpretation, apparently, that was given by the Director of National Security there, or the intelligence community, Mr. Clapper.
Right.
So we have a situation where the left continues to want to argue about, and I think we all want to minimize Russian interference in American elections. But at the same time, we also have to understand that America is involved in elections around the world. Just last week, or this week, the French elected a new president, and it was part of Obama's involvement in the election to endorse Macron that results in Macron's being elected. And last year, in the midst of the campaign, it's understood that our State Department sent about $350,000 to Israeli political organizations whose purpose and whose utilization of the funds was to destabilize the election of the Israeli leader, Netanyahu. So the idea that we are shocked that someone would seek to influence our elections is a little bit naive. Now,
right.
The point is that we should do what we can to limit that influence, and when it's done illegally by violating the law, that's a matter very serious, and we should make others pay for it.
Well, you make a really good point, because the truth is President Obama did try to influence elections, both in Israel as well as now in France. I mean, and he made no bones about it. He came out and he supported, and as you just laid it out. But, you know, yesterday was interesting because Sally Yates answered the things that she wanted to talk about in terms of why she, you know, alerted people about Michael Flynn, what she knew about Michael Flynn. But then when she was asked the other things about the unmasking, about surveillance, she said she couldn't, and she hid behind it's all classified information. Will we ever actually get details on that? I mean, would Lindsey Graham be able to solicit that information in a private meeting? Because she did pick and choose in terms of what she wanted to answer. And in many cases it was, well, I do know the answer to that, but I can't tell you.
Well, Senator Cornyn insightfully indicated that his presence both on the Intelligence Committee as well as on the Subcommittee of Judiciary, which was hearing yesterday, gave him a unique insight into seeing things that were otherwise unavailable generally. So I think the Senate's in a position to gain that kind of information, and ultimately I think the crimes of unmasking American citizens who are incidentally surveilled as a result of our intelligence operation, that unmasking ought to have consequences. Ms. Yates at one time during yesterday's hearing said there ought to be some prosecutions. Well, I think that's one of those things that ought to be prosecuted. If those who illegally leak the identities of American citizens incidentally collected as a part of intelligence surveillance, that's a serious violation of the law and an infringement of the rights of citizens of this country.
Yeah.
I don't know that she took extraordinary steps to do that, but that's one area in which I agree that we could prosecute some people violating the law.
You know, you and I have spoken in the past about the politicization of so many of the agencies within government, and it continues today. Mr. Attorney General, what are we going to do in order to reverse this? This is a huge thing that so many agencies are politicized, and their politics are driving them. For example, I've been told, this weekend I was told that for President Trump's first 4 executive orders, he wrote the orders, and before he actually signed the orders, some Obama holdouts changed the language of those orders. They went into the order and they took out words like Islamic terrorist, you know, jihadists. They took out the words that they wanted to take out. And then by the time it reached the president's desk so that he could sign it, it was found. So before he actually signed it, it was found that the words were changed. The language was changed. I mean, this is a serious issue. If you've got holdouts from a prior administration that are doing everything they can to create landmines for President Trump and ultimately stopping his agenda. That's not what the people voted for.
Well, yeah, your last remark is the most probative. I mean, this is undemocratic. The people elect the president with a mandate. He seeks to put the mandate in place. He does so by crafting orders that are passed upon, even by career employees in the Justice Department, like the Office of Legal Counsel, which is the group of the best lawyers in the department. And then a person highly charged with some sense of self-righteous understanding comes and sets it aside. Ms. Yates decided to become the Supreme Court, not the Attorney General. She decided what was going to be constitutional and unconstitutional, and she looked beyond the order which had been crafted, and she admitted in the hearing yesterday that she was considering statements being made in the political universe and in the culture that would somehow make what was otherwise constitutional unconstitutional, and therefore she said she would not defend it. You know, we have a principle in the United States that everyone is entitled to his day in court. But according to Ms. Yates, it must be that everyone except the President of the United States is entitled to his day in court, because she wasn't going to allow him, having acted in a way that the Justice Department Office of Legal Counsel said was totally legal, having acted in a way that was legal, she wasn't going to give the president his day in court.
No, she wasn't.
I thought
what advice do you have then for Jeff Sessions and the president today? Because he is being stopped in terms of his agenda. Look at the immigration ban. You know, look at policy that is taking slower than people thought. So the obstructionism and the political drivers within the administration that are, you know, career people are stopping the agenda. They're slowing it down, and he still has a lot of unfilled seats.
Well, the key is having leadership in the departments. I think Jeff Sessions would have defended the president's order, where Ms. Yates decided she would be the only attorney general in the history of the United States to go against the judgment of the Office of Legal Counsel and to suspend a defense of the president's order and not provide it. So having people confirmed and in positions of leadership gives them the opportunity to direct the departments, and that's something that's been sorely absent. The American people have been deprived by this, this obstructionism of what they're entitled to. A democracy expects the mandate of the person elected to have at least a fair chance and at minimum a day in court.
Yeah. Attorney General, happy birthday to you.
Thank you.
Happy birthday. Good to see you, sir.